Hello, friends. We're going to talk about Anchor Project number 3 together today. There were 4 major projects in this class, and this is number 3 on the list. I guess technically there's 5 if you count your closing portfolio, but I don't because, you don't really have to make anything new for it, right? It's just assembling what you've already done. So let's talk about project number 3. Pending I can click the right sequence of buttons to make it go forward. Hey, there we go. All right, so the purpose of this assignment is for you to design a classroom environment that really focuses on supporting students who are affected by trauma, helping them build resilience, through specific research-backed features. It's like I forget how to talk every time I record one of these videos. So our purpose is to basically look at how we know that trauma impacts people. We know the things we go through impacts our it can be a major setback for us, right? So looking at how we can help students build resilience is really our key in this scenario. Which of course is useful no matter what, right? Because honestly, even if you have students who haven't necessarily had any sort of trauma in their life, the skills to build resilience are still useful for anyone, but they're especially important for our students who have been through traumatic experiences. So part 1 of this assignment is what we're going to call an annotated floor plan. So you are going to create your classroom floor plan. For those of you who are potentially interested in doing careers other than education, you're more than welcome to create your classroom office setup, counseling room, whatever it is you're planning on. I mean, unless you're planning on majoring in business, in which case you're probably not going to be able to make it work for this assignment, but nevertheless, you can do this however you want. You can digitally design it. You can hand draw it, do whatever is easiest for you. There's a variety of, if you go to Google and you literally type in classroom floor plan creator, free, don't ever pay for anything, right? You can literally go through and there's a variety of different little apps that you can use to actually create things for you. Canva is my personal favorite. I've never used it for a floor plan. But anywho, you can go through and kind of do that if you would like to do so. You can also draw this bad boy. I am not that particular about it because I'm not grading you on the artistic skill of your floor plan. I'm grading you based on the information that's on it. So remember, whenever you're designing this, that classrooms are more than just kid desks and a teacher desk, right? So consider things like seating arrangements, reading areas where you're going to store materials. Are you going to have extra materials in your classroom? Will you have extra supplies? Are there going to be snacks in here? Things like that. So on this floor plan, I want you to identify, label, and describe at least 5 things that you are doing to support students who have potentially dealt with trauma in their life. So this is the annotated part. So what you're annotating is you're basically pointing out something on the floor plan. You're telling me what it is, why it matters. And this is going to be where you cite research to support your basically your argument, and then explain how it's going to help build resilience. So for example, here's a pretty easy one if you want to use it. If you at my old school, for example, I used to always keep food in my room because food scarcity was an issue in one of the areas that I taught in previous to where I work at now. And I still try to keep snacks in my classroom where possible because kids are always hungry, right? What was my research on that? Kids can't think when they're hungry. And I don't have a source right off the top of my head right now, but I promise you there are a gajillion of medical sources out there that show, and you probably know from personal experience, that when you're hungry, all you think about is being hungry. So I always try to keep snacks in my classroom. That way, in case kids were hungry, they could get a snack and then actually get back to focusing on education because they weren't dying of hunger in the moment, right? So that would be something that I could put on my floor plan. You can obviously do whatever works for you. Consider, of course, what age you're going to be teaching. Elementary rooms might look a little bit different than high school rooms. Calm down corners are really popular in elementary world. I didn't really have one of those in high school land because we, had a calming room in our social work department. And that's just where I would send kids who needed that facility. But in an elementary school, that might be a little more relevant. But whatever you do, you're going to put it on your floor plan. You're going to tell me what it is. You're going to cite some research to show why it matters and explain how it's basically going to help build your students up. Okay. You're also going to create your first day plan. You never get a second chance at a first impression, right? And the first days of school are so important that literally when I was in school, we were required to read this book called The First Days of School. And it was by Dr. Wong and I think somebody else whose last name was also Wong. So I'm pretty sure it was Wong and Wong when I cited it. But anywho, the first day is where you really lay out those procedures for what your classroom is going to look like, right? So how are you going to plan your first day of school to ensure that all of your students, especially those facing challenges, are welcome? So you're going to be typing about 1 double-spaced page for this. this minimum. So consider things like, how are you going to greet students? What will the first 30 minutes in your classroom look like? What routines will you establish immediately? Why do those routines matter? How do you communicate safety and predictability? How do you ensure students who are experiencing housing instability feel welcome without actively singling them out? And what will you not do? So, like common practices that could be re traumatizing, right? So, what are the things you're not going to do? What are the things you are going to do? But most importantly, how are you going to do all this without particularly calling kids out, right? Like, you don't want to be like, oh, if you have experienced an ACEs score of 5 or higher, please raise your hand and come. Like, that would be horrible, right? Don't do that. So, tell me what you're going to do, what you're not going to do. Part 3, of course, is your reflection. It's about a half a page, just like it has been every other time. So think about how your own school experience, whether that was positive or negative, influenced the design that you chose for your first day of school and for your classroom. What do you think would be hardest to implement and why? And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to go back to that Illinois school report card, because I told you you're going to be best friends with that this semester. And I want you to look particularly at data for the homeless population in your area. Again, I do not recommend using your census data because the way it measures homelessness is actually completely useless, if we're going to be honest. So go to the Illinois School Report Card and look basically at their homeless populations. That's going to be who fulfills that McKinney-Vento requirement threshold. What I want you to do is look and see, how does it compare to the state average? So the state average for last year, because the data is obviously a year behind because we don't necessarily have the data for this school year because it's still going on. So the state average for last year was 3%. How does your community's population basically relate to that, right? Is it higher? Is it lower? Is it the same, et cetera? Does that number surprise you based on your experience of living in your community? So obviously for this one, you're going to pick whatever community you're from. And if you're not from Illinois and you're familiar with schools in Illinois or a community in Illinois, that might be the easiest thing to do there. And if you were somehow not from Illinois altogether and have never been to Illinois, then I'm impressed that you found Shawnee College. But nevertheless, McKinney-Vento is a national thing, so you should probably be able to find that statistic somewhere else. It's just easiest if you're in Illinois. Moving right along, things I'm going to look for as I grade you. I want your visual element for your floor plan to show thought, but I'm really more interested in your annotations than your drawing skills. So if it's a rough sketch that you've done by hand and your desks are a little lumpy, that's okay. I'm not worried about that. I'm more interested in what features are in your classroom. Why did you choose those? What evidence are you connecting that to in research? So cite some sources. I want to see specific actions, not just, I'll smile and be welcoming. Okay, that's cute and important, but like, what does that do, right? So give me reasons for everything that you do. Be sure to pay attention to specific student needs. And lastly, write this like it's you, right? This does not have to be overly formal. I'm not looking for a clinical report and, a perfectly third person academic high vernacular thing here, right? Like, I'm looking particularly with just you engaging with the topic. So it's totally fine to write like you're talking to me in this scenario. As always, if you have questions, I want to hear from you. I would much rather help you with questions than leave you lost and confused for forever. So you've got my email address right there. Just send me an email and I am happy to help you in any way I can. So that is it for this. So like I said, if you've got questions, send them on over. Looking forward to seeing your projects.